Well, last time we had discussions about what the prediction, say what the life would be in 2030. And I had given some predictions about the diverse aspects. How about one subject which is a major concern to us, and that's the energy. It is energy that motivates, moves, prompts, and propels economic growth. It's energy which makes our life livable. So let's talk about what the energy shall be in 2030. Today we are living in a world where somewhere we see shortages, somewhere we are plagued by the high prices, and somewhere we see a sort of energy which is a burden and not something that is helpful. Two countries in this world today stand out as examples of sustainable development as far as energy is concerned. And they are not big countries, they are small countries. One is Iceland, with the 0% of fossil fuel energy. The 100% energy is renewable, clean, and it is nothing but geothermal. There's another country which is the happiest country in the world, and that's Costa Rica in South America. Costa Rica doesn't again use either gas or coal, but it is all energized by renewable energy. And I'm amazed that if these two countries can do so, why can't other countries be equally good? So let's make some predictions. I can tell you that in the next 20 years, there's going to be a watershed in the production and utilization of energy. You would find that the fossil fuels would be slowly and steadily relegated to the background, and before any disaster takes place, reasonable public and government support would help us use only renewable and clean energies. You know that the shale gas in USA is a major way in which fossil fuels, especially coal and crude, are being displaced and replaced. This year alone, the import bill of USA of petroleum products was reduced by 50%. And Marcellus Shale is likely to be a major national production leader. But it shall not be the only thing, because shale also is a source which will be depleted. You can be sure that the renewable energy in the shape of geothermal, tidal, and solar would rule the roost. And wherever fossil fuel is used, because you can't 100% remove it, it has to be a mixture of the diverse sources, diverse feedstocks. We would see slowly and steadily a global carbon price being established. The European Commission has decided to rectify the over-allocation of allowance of US and European Union emission trading scheme. And I perceive by that 2020, European Union and China would come on a meeting table and decide a global price. Negotiations are already there. But because of the US reservations and the Chinese reservations, EU is not proceeding in a major perceptible manner. But you would find that the establishment of the global carbon price by 2030 would be applicable all over the world, and the carbon dioxide being emitted into the atmosphere would be controlled and would have to be paid. And it will be the polluter pays principle in full application. In 2030, about 5 years back, US had stopped investing in coal-fired projects overseas. In 2015, Norway had stopped using coal and had said that it will not fund any project that depends on coal. After the Fukushima nuclear disaster, countries like Switzerland and Germany have said no more nuclears. So these two sources and the feedstocks have already been practically banned by major countries, but China and India are still not saying goodbye to coal or to nuclear. As a matter of fact, nuclear is being demanded more and more, but with the establishment of the carbon price, the desire to go nuclear or dependent coal would be diminished. Then there'll be second thing I see is a new concept, and that's the community energy ownership. The energy efficiency targets would be set up based on the community needs. Really what Marx and Engels in their Communist Manifesto have said, to each according to his need, might find expression and applicability in the energy usage. You would see that the energy generation contributes today 50% of the energy mix in the developed countries and less than 5% in developed countries. So this energy mix is going to change, and it will be community-wise decision what the energy ownership should be like. The private ownership is naturally going to end. The governmental ownership is going to end, and it shall be a cooperative sort of a thing where the community as a whole would have its own generation. Gated communities would have their solar energy. Communities near the sea would have their tidal energy. So it will be decentralization. You know, though people who are talking in the terms of the national grids and international grids forget that the cost of transportation and the T&D losses, that is transport and distribution, are almost 40%. So imagine if 40% energy which is wasted in T&D can be saved, then there is no energy shortage. So by 2030, I visualize that T&D losses would be practically nil. And each community would have a decentralized ownership scheme. The third would be that investments in the renewables would increase 4 times, and that will correspond to disinvestment from coal and petroleum. Now that's a very clear thing. As the investment from one feedstock comes down, it is put in the other feedstock. So there will be a change in the investment pattern, and the big corporations today, which are big because of having coal as a source of their economic activity, or petroleum, crude as their activity, all the oil companies and others which are earning billions and billions of dollars, they will be matter of the past. And you will find small groups decentralized groups having their own companies everywhere. And then, what will be the center of production for the renewables? China has already been the major source of the production of PV cells, photovoltaic cells for the solar energy. But the next growth of manufacture of the renewables is not going to be China, is going to be Europe. Already, thin film solar PV cell with reel-to-reel printing, 3D printing, which has reduced the cost of production, would enable Europe again to become the leader in manufacture of the new generation renewables. You would find that once again Europe would be leader in this field, the field of the new renewables. Every generation has its own renewables. So the photovoltaic cells which are being used now would be replaced by thin film solar photovoltaic cells. So thirdly, as I said earlier, fossil fuel would be on the way out. So not only the fuels would be on the way out, but even the lobby promoting them and the companies promoting them would be on the way out. The companies and the organizations know that the market conditions are changing. And already a process of disinvestment has started. I was invited to be a contributor to Vision, Eurovision, and there I found that the whole renewable market is now being funded in Europe by Shell. Shell is already, though a giant in the oil industry, is going into the new sectors. So these big companies, which have earned millions and billions, are already disinvesting and investing in clean technologies. From clean technologies to a new feedstock is just a short hop and step. And that hop and jump would enable them to be the leaders. The transportation, for example, which today we are talking of the electric cars. By 2030, electric cars would be on the way out. There will be no electric cars. There will be hydrogen cell cars. The hydrogen shall be the motivating factor, where the exhaust would be zero, pure water, and already work is being done a lot on the hydrogen cells. The only thing is containment of the hydrogen cells and their proper use. In 2030, you would find that the agriculture subsidies for the air quality targets would be changing, and there will be removal of the fossil fuel subsidies. The grip of the vested groups is slowly and steadily declining, and the grip of the people who believe in sustainable development without polluting the atmosphere would be there. I visualize 2030 as from the energy sector, where each group creates and uses its own energy. The national grids are there in name, and their purpose would be to supply energy to the highways and connectivity between the different communities. You see, each community has its own generation and its own use. But the connectivity between the communities would be by the national grid. So there would be a layer of organizations. Nevertheless, it shall be clean, it shall be renewable, and it shall not be suffering from the issue of outages, shortages, or other deficiencies that we have today. Of course, we would also be saved from the fear of the disasters like nuclear weapon uh, leakage that happened in Fukushima. On the whole, on the energy sector, the outlook is very buoyant and very encouraging. Thank you.